Hello, I'm Sarah Bennett. 8 years. 8 years of being cropped out of family photos, invitations, and memories I once thought were mine. They called me too independent, too busy, too different. They said I didn't belong in the Adirondacks anymore, not part of the lake house where I grew up. But this time, I'm not begging for a seat at their table. I bought that house, the lake house they thought would always be theirs. So when they show up with suitcases, forced smiles, and hellos, the front desk will ask, "Are you on Miss Sarah Bennett's guest list?" They'll have to say my name or turn back. Before I start, let me know where you're reading from. What time is it there? Drop a comment. I read everyone, and I want to hear your story. Thursday mornings shouldn't feel like a boulder on your chest. Usually, my day starts with a cup of Earl Grey, a slightly burnt slice of toast, and a dozen work emails I can ignore until my second tea kicks in. But today, a subject line in my inbox stopped me mid-schedule check. Bennett family 35th anniversary, RSVP now. Bold, bright, and sharp as an invisible blade. My breath caught. I clicked before I could stop myself, fingers trembling on the trackpad. The recipient list was a yearbook, Sister Claire, Brother Lucas, Aunt Ellen, even Cousin Nate, who only shows up for free food or a chance to brag. My name? Nowhere. Not in the CC, not in the footer, not even a typo. They didn't forget me. They erased me. I stared at the screen, feeling like it had slapped me. Below the main email were dozens of replies, jokes about last summer's fishing trip, memories of bonfire nights by the lake. The same lake where I floated paper lanterns with Grandpa at 7, their tinfoil glowing under moonlight. That was before I learned family love could fade, like ink on paper, and the memories I cherished could be rewritten as someone else's story. I scrolled down, a foolish spark of hope flickering that there'd be a second email, a late correction. But I knew better. This wasn't the first time. Last summer, Claire called, her voice syrupy over FaceTime, saying my invite must have glitched. "You know how apps mess up, Sarah," she laughed, as if cutting me from her kid's birthday party was a tech error. I nodded, pretended to buy it, but my heart knew the truth. They didn't want me there. I closed the laptop and sat, my Albany office suddenly too big, too quiet. My CFA certificate on the wall, earned through thousands of hours of study and work, felt like it belonged to someone else. Sunlight glinted off the Hudson River outside, but my chest was ice, like winter had crept into June. My eyes drifted to my desk, and there it was, the small bronze ring, a gift from Grandpa when I was 9. It sat silently in the drawer, wedged between dead pens and old receipts. He'd found it at an antique fair in Saranac Lake, a tiny town near the lake. "This belongs to a girl who dreams big," he said, his brown eyes twinkling as he placed it in my hand. That was before he started calling Claire the family star, before Mom introduced me as the one always busy with numbers, before I learned being the middle child didn't mean being loved. It meant being easy to overlook, easy to push out of the light. "You okay, Sarah?" I flinched, looking up. Rachel, my coworker and best friend, stood by my desk, holding a steaming coffee. I swallowed, forcing a smile. "Yeah, just spam." She tilted her head, her sharp brown eyes seeing through me. "Family?" I didn't answer, just gave a tight smile and turned back to my laptop, but I didn't reopen the financial report. My hand hovered over the keyboard, then shut the laptop completely. Project files sat on my desk, my role as regional CFO at 34, a milestone I'd sweated and cried for through late nights and tense investor meetings. I'd outlasted skeptical looks from older colleagues, whispers that I was too young to lead. But to my family, I was just the one who left the Adirondacks, worked too much, and forgot her roots. They didn't see the nights I stayed up, the times I sent money to cover Dad's medical bills, or the calls I made just to hear Mom say, "You're so busy, aren't you?" My phone buzzed on the desk, snapping me out of my thoughts. A text from Rachel, saw the invite email. "Want to do something to shake them up?" My fingers lingered over the screen, pausing. Then I typed, "or something to change the game." I opened a browser tab I'd bookmarked last week when I stumbled on news that made my pulse race. A real estate listing. The Adirondack Lake house, where Claire threw lavish birthday parties for her son, where my parents celebrated their 30th anniversary without inviting me because there wasn't room. That house, with its oak porch, windows overlooking shimmering water, and rocking chairs where I listened to Grandpa's folktales, was for sale. No family announcement, no group text. The market was down, and they'd quietly listed it, like it was just an old trinket they didn't need. I stared at the listing, photos of the ivy-draped porch, the small dock where I floated lanterns, the stone fireplace where I knitted scarves with Grandpa. They'd let it slip through their fingers, the way they'd let me slip from their lives. I hovered over the contact agent button and clicked, feeling like I'd dropped a stone into a still lake. The agent's confirmation email arrived in under 10 minutes, but my phone buzzed before I could read it. Mom's ringtone, an old folk song I never changed, though it always tightened my chest. I took a deep breath, hit accept. "Hi, Mom," I said, voice dry, bracing for the usual script. "Sarah, sweetheart," she started, her tone warm but edged, the kind she used when she was about to say something hurtful while sounding kind. "I know you're so busy, so we figured you wouldn't want to come to the anniversary." I cut in, not wanting another excuse. "Let me guess. Claire's kid needed a bigger room, or Lucas brought a new girlfriend?" Silence stretched on the other end. I could picture Mom smoothing her hair, her manicured nails brushing silver strands. "You know how small the house is," she said finally. "It's just a space issue." I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so predictable. The same excuse she used 2 years ago, when she called a day before Christmas dinner, whispering apologies like I was the inconvenience. "I get it, Mom," I said, voice even, no tremor. "Thanks for letting me know." I hung up before she could reply, not throwing the phone, not crying. I stood, poured a glass of water from the pitcher on my kitchen counter, and returned to my desk with the calm of someone who'd seen the ending before. I'd heard these words too many times, felt this hurt too long. But today, it was different. Today, I wasn't just accepting it. I opened my bank account on the laptop, the screen glowing with numbers like loyal soldiers, savings, company stock, the investment fund I'd built through years of grinding work. I whispered to myself, "All right, go big." My phone buzzed again. A text from Rachel, "Got proof. You need to see this." I opened the screenshot Rachel sent. A group chat, Bennett True Family, the name itself a fresh jab. Claire wrote, "Sarah says she's not coming. Wants to make it messy again." Lucas added a laughing emoji. Aunt Ellen replied, "She needs to grow up and let go." At the bottom, Mom texted Rachel privately, "You okay taking Sarah's old room? It's empty anyway." My old room. With curtains Grandpa picked, the wooden desk where I did summer homework, the rug I wove in 6th grade. They weren't just cutting me from the anniversary. They were erasing me from the house, from family history, like I'd never existed. I read the messages twice, feeling a stab in my chest. But beneath the pain was something else, not anger, but clarity, sharp as light reflecting off the lake. They weren't just excluding me. They were rewriting my story, casting me as the troublemaker, the selfish one, to justify their cruelty. To them, I muttered, standing by my window overlooking the Hudson, "I'm a flame they think they snuffed out." But I knew the truth. I wasn't snuffed. I was pushed out to burn on my own, and now I'd let that fire roar. I remembered the summer I was 10, at the lake house. I'd spent all day crafting a floating lantern, meticulously gluing tinfoil scraps and drawing moons with crayons. When I set it on the lake, the family stood on the dock, oohing at its shimmering light. Then Claire stepped forward, resting her hand on the lantern, smiling for Dad's camera. "What a talented girl," Dad said, his eyes glowing with pride. I didn't correct him. Neither did Claire. That night, I sat alone on the dock, hearing them toast Claire inside, their voices carrying through the open window. Back in the present, I reopened the real estate app, no hesitation left. I scheduled a meeting with the agent for the next morning, no announcements, no explanations. Action was the only response I needed. The next day, I walked into the real estate office in Lake Placid, a log building nestled among pines, the air faintly scented with sap. A gray-haired man in silver-rimmed glasses greeted me with a warm smile. "Ms. Bennett, right?" he said, extending a hand. "I was told you'd be coming." I nodded, settling into a leather chair across from his desk. "Thanks for fitting me in." He pulled up the listing on his tablet, blue light reflecting off his glasses. "Your name sounds familiar," he said, peering over the rims. "Related to the current owners?" I met his gaze, voice steady. I was, until today. Wind from the lake carried the scent of fresh pine as I drove to a storage unit on Albany's outskirts that weekend. The smell of dust and old wood calmed me, a reminder that the past was still there, even if forgotten. Unit 22B. I unlocked it, the roll-up door screeching as it slid open. Inside were pieces of my life I'd left behind, furniture from my first apartment, boxes of CFA study books, and in the far corner, Grandpa's wooden chest, heavy with memories. I dragged the chest out, brushing dust off the lid. The latch was stiff but gave way. Inside was the faint smell of Grandpa's pipe tobacco, mixed with aged leather. My heart beat faster. On top was a notebook, its brown cover worn, etched with a hand-carved moon. Beneath it, a sealed envelope, Grandpa's shaky handwriting, to Sarah. "Open when you're ready to stand alone." I sat on the cold concrete floor, opening the envelope with trembling fingers. The letter was short, a few lines. "You'll know why I left this. Real love doesn't abandon, even when those closest do. Use it when they try to silence you." I read it again, tears blurring the ink. Tucked with the letter was a trust document, legally binding, clear as day. If the lake house's owners failed to pay property taxes or maintain it, I could claim ownership. I didn't grasp every legal term, but I understood enough to know it was a chance. The next morning, I sat across from a lawyer in Albany, a man in his 60s with silver hair and a voice like oak. He flipped through the document, nodding slowly. "This clause is ironclad," he said, pushing his glasses up. "Records show they're 3 years behind on taxes. Sign this petition, and ownership transfers in 10 days unless contested. Given their finances, they don't stand a chance." I took the pen, signed the petition, feeling not triumph but readiness. "They don't know, do they?" he asked, his eyes sharp. I nodded. "They will soon." Leaving his office, a cold breeze swept through Albany streets, but a small fire burned in my chest. Back home, I opened the real estate listing. A new photo had been added, the porch strung with paper lanterns, propped for the anniversary they thought was still theirs. Let them plan. Let them arrive with cakes, wine, and fake apologies. They'd forgotten the most important document, the one with my name on it. I wasn't just taking back the house. I was claiming my light. The next morning, I brewed a cup of tea, opened my laptop. A new email from Claire, reminder, Bennett anniversary RSVP. The tone was falsely warm, listing room details, activities, and a playlist for the party. My name was absent, as expected. Rachel texted right after, "You need to see this. They're not stopping." I opened the screenshot of the Bennett True Family chat. Claire wrote, "Sarah's not coming. Let's do this without the drama." Lucas added a peace emoji. Mom texted Rachel, "You okay taking Sarah's old room? It's empty anyway." I read, feeling the air sucked out of me. My old room, with curtains Grandpa chose, the desk I carved my name into at 12, the bookshelf stuffed with novels I read every summer. They weren't just cutting me out. They were erasing me entirely. I didn't cry. I opened the property management portal, logging in as the new owner. I booked the master suite, queen bed, private porch overlooking the lake, wide windows for moonlight. Guest, Sarah Bennett. Arrival, Saturday. Stay, 3 nights. I added a note: prepare a chilled Prosecco, soft pillows, linen sheets. Ensure absolute privacy. The confirmation email arrived in minutes. Their anniversary was now under my name. That evening, I paced my small Albany apartment, a glass of white wine in hand. The fireplace crackled, casting orange light on the walls. I opened my phone's photo gallery, scrolling through reunions I'd photographed but wasn't in, birthdays I sent Amazon gifts for only to get a curt thanks text, and a picture Claire posted online, my head cropped out of the frame. That was me to them, a shadow, a prop, until they didn't need me anymore. I remembered Mom's words, years ago, when I confronted them about being left out: "You're too sensitive, Sarah. Not everything's about you." But this house, this moment, was about me. Not for recognition, but to rewrite my own story. I texted Rachel, "Thanks for the proof. Don't cancel plans. There'll be moments worth watching." She replied instantly, "I'm ready with popcorn." The next morning, I drove to the cemetery near the lake, where Grandpa rested. I brought a black coffee, his favorite, from a small shop in Lake Placid. Wind swept pine needles across the headstones, carrying the scent of damp earth. Grandpa's stone sat beside a patch of wild strawberries, simple and unassuming. "Too flashy," he'd said about big bouquets. "Give me time or a good story." "Hey, Grandpa," I whispered, sitting on the grass, placing the coffee by his stone. "They're at it again." "You'd roll your eyes hard." I smiled, picturing his wrinkled grin. "You said don't shout, just stand firm." "I'm doing it." The wind carried the silence away, and in that moment, I felt him there, not in body, but in the steady quiet he always brought. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I opened it to a group chat notification. Lucas posted, "Booked the master suite. Big party incoming." Comments followed, "Classic Lucas. Big shot." No one asked who secured the house. They thought I was invisible, as I always was to them. I typed, "That room's under my name." Sent. Silence stretched, like the lake before a storm. Then Claire messaged privately, "What are you doing, Sarah?" I typed slowly, each word a stone dropped in water. "I'm not doing. I'm warning. You never listened to me." I muted the chat, blocked notifications, a calm washing over me. When you stop needing approval to exist, you start acting like you own the ground you walk on. And I did own it, not just the house, but my story. The sun was setting as I parked half a mile from the lake house. I waited, watching them arrive, one by one. Claire's sleek SUV, Lucas's Jeep with faded stickers, Mom's old sedan, still with a proud mom decal on the back window. They didn't see me, didn't notice my rented sedan under the pines. They never saw me. I pulled up to the front desk at 7 p.m., as the sunset painted the lake orange. Claire was arguing with the receptionist, her voice high, gesturing wildly. Lucas leaned on the counter, scrolling his phone with a bored look. Mom stood back, lips pursed, eyes avoiding everyone. I walked in, heels clicking on the wood floor, the sound cutting through the noise. The receptionist looked up, repeating to Claire, "You're not on Miss Sarah Bennett's guest list?" Claire spun, her blonde ponytail whipping. "What? This is our family house. 15 years. Her blue eyes locked on me, like I'd stepped out of a nightmare. The receptionist glanced at me, offering a faint, professional smile. "Ms. Bennett, welcome." I stepped forward, not looking at Claire, sliding my ID across the counter. "No need for stress," I said, voice light but firm. "I'll clear this up." Lucas straightened, pocketing his phone. "What's this game, Sarah? You joking?" I slid the ID closer to the receptionist. "Ownership papers finalized last month. The house is mine." Silence fell, like the air had been sucked from the room. Mom clutched her purse, fingers white. "You bought it?" "No way." "Legally, clearly, and finally," I said, meeting her eyes. You should check the trust Grandpa left. Claire paled, her voice shaking. Why would you do this? This is our space. And I was supposed to be your sister, I replied, voice steady. But you cut me from everything, parties, photos, memories. So I made my own way. The receptionist glanced between us, clearly unsure what to do. Lucas smirked, stepping closer. You think you can kick us out? What do you win, Sarah? I turned to him, my gaze sharp as a blade. No, Lucas. I'm taking back what's mine. That's the difference. Then, to the receptionist, voice calm, please escort anyone not on the guest list out. Be kind. They're family. She nodded, lifting the phone to call security, her hands slightly trembling. Claire muttered, low like a hiss, I'll sue you. Check the unpaid taxes, I replied, not blinking. You'd be surprised how much started before you sent that invite. Mom stepped forward, her voice soft, almost pleading, do you hate us that much, Sarah? I let the silence hang, letting her question dangle. Then I said, slowly, I don't hate. I just stopped hoping you'd see me. I turned, stepped into the elevator, their arguing fading behind me like waves on the shore. As the doors closed, my breathing slowed. Not relief, but readiness. Because I knew what was coming, not silence, but a storm. I was brewing tea in the master suite, the bergamot scent rising, when blinding lights flashed through the wide glass window. I pulled the curtain, seeing a news van parked at the gate, a local channel's logo glowing. A reporter, hair gelled stiff, stood before a camera, shouting, Ms. Bennett, can you confirm you coerced your grandfather into signing over the property while he was unfit? Sources say he was manipulated. I shut the curtain, didn't answer, but my heart pounded. My phone buzzed wildly, texts from coworkers, old classmates, a cousin I hadn't seen since Easter 2014. Is it true, Sarah? You okay? Then an email arrived, a temporary restraining order, demanding I cease use of the property at 56 Lakeview Drive. And on social media, Claire's post, a family betrayer doesn't deserve love. I pray for her. Comments flooded in, crying and fire emojis from people who didn't know my name yesterday. I sat on the master suite's bed, moonlight from the lake spilling through the window. I opened my photo gallery, found a picture of me and Grandpa fishing on the dock, both grinning under summer sun. Tears came, not from sadness, but exhaustion. The lake roared outside, like a witness to the pain I carried. My fingers brushed the bronze ring on my neck, the gift Grandpa said would remind me you're a fire no one can put out. But they tried. They painted me as the villain, the manipulator, the selfish one. Until Rachel texted, they want war. Use the truth. She sent more proof, screenshots of the group chat, private emails. Claire wrote, Sarah's too sensitive. Cutting her out was easiest. Mom replied, she's busy being important. Don't feel bad. Lucas added, she likes being alone. Let her. I read, my pulse a flame igniting. This wasn't just evidence. It was a portrait of the cruelty they hid behind family smiles. This was the moment I'd rewrite my story, not as a victim, but as a survivor. On the morning of the hearing, rain fell in soft sheets, drops streaking my car window. I stepped into the Albany courthouse, wearing the gray dress Grandpa once called the color of resolve. My binder hugged my chest, its pages a shield. Mom sat 3 rows away, eyes avoiding mine, hands clasped tight in her lap. Claire wore a navy blazer, shoulders tense, her gaze sharp as a knife. Lucas was absent, as I'd predicted, he always dodged fights he couldn't win. The clerk called, Bennett versus Bennett, petition to block property sale. Claire's lawyer stood, a young man with a confident smile and a tailored suit. Sarah Bennett exploited her grandfather's frailty to seize family property, he said, voice smooth. We have evidence of his mental instability. I didn't flinch, though my heart raced. The judge, an older woman with silver hair pinned high, looked at me over her glasses. Ms. Bennett, your response? I stood, opening my binder. I'd like to present video and audio of my grandfather's intent. The room stilled as I plugged a USB into the projector. The video played, the lake house porch, 3 years ago, sunlight filtering through pines. Grandpa sat in a rocking chair, voice clear, eyes bright. Sarah should have the house. She's the only one who cares without asking for anything. They treat her like a guest, but she's my legacy. Murmurs rippled through the room. Mom bowed her head, hands gripping tighter. I played the next audio, a group chat recording, Claire's voice cold. Sarah doesn't belong here. Let her isolate herself. If she wanted in, she'd have been easier to control. The judge raised an eyebrow, glancing at Claire. She shrank in her blazer, eyes darting away. The judge tapped her pen, voice firm. The video shows clear intent from the trust's creator. The audio shows deliberate exclusion. Ms. Bennett acted legally, and this court sees no basis for the petition. She paused, looking at my family. This court isn't here to fix family grudges. Case dismissed. Claire froze, lips tight. Mom stared into space, like she was somewhere else. I gathered my binder, left the courtroom, my steps echoing on marble. Outside, reporters swarmed, microphones thrusting forward. Ms. Bennett, comment on the win? I paused, took a breath, and said, truth is the only way out of the dark. I found my light. I walked down the steps, through the crowd, to my car. No applause, just rain and my footsteps. I didn't need cheers. I had the truth, and that day, the truth won. Driving back to the lake house, the air was damp and sweet with pine. I stepped out of the car, the weight of the past month falling like dry leaves. The house glowed in the sunlight, its oak porch gleaming like it had been polished. The key in my hand wasn't a trophy, but a promise to myself that I deserved to exist, to be seen. Inside, their traces lingered, a coffee mug on the kitchen counter, a folded towel by the stairs, a framed photo of Claire's son on the living room wall. I didn't take them down. I walked past, my shoes clicking on the hardwood, feeling like I was walking on my own history. In Grandpa's study, I opened the low drawer where he kept notebooks and pencils. There, I found the floating lantern we made when I was 8. Its colored paper was faded, the moon drawing peeling, but it was still mine. I sat on the floor, turning the paper scraps in my hands. Grandpa's voice echoed in my mind, broken things don't need tossing, Sarah. Just patient hands. I carried the lantern to the porch, set it on the wooden table, and started repairing it. No glue, no rush, just careful taping of each piece. The lake's waves lapped the shore, a rhythm to my work. That afternoon, Rachel arrived, bringing a bottle of Sauvignon Blanc and a bag of fresh bread. You didn't think I'd let you settle in alone, did you? She laughed, her curly brown hair bouncing in the breeze. We wiped down the counter where Claire sliced loaves, folded the blanket Mom left for special guests. As we sat on the porch, the sun painted the lake orange, and the wind carried the scent of fresh grass. Rachel turned, her wineglass glinting. You didn't just win, Sarah. You unraveled it all. You freed yourself. I looked at the small waves, not answering right away, letting her words settle. A knock sounded at the back gate. Not Claire or Mom, but Mrs. Larson, the neighbor 2 houses down, an older woman with silver hair and a gentle smile. She carried a tin of homemade blueberry muffins. Welcome home, Sarah, she said, pressing the tin into my hands. Your grandpa talked about you, more than the others. Said you asked about the moon when you were 5. That girl's bright as the lake, he said. I blinked, the tin suddenly heavier than the past month. I thanked her, watching her walk down the gravel path, her figure fading into the sunset. I returned to the porch, hanging the repaired lantern on a wooden hook. It swayed gently, catching the breeze, like it remembered it was born to shine. For the first time in 8 years, I breathed freely, not holding my breath for approval. They might never apologize. There might never be a dinner where someone says, "You were right." But I didn't need those words anymore. I'd built a life without their permission. I took back more than the house, I took back my fire. I didn't burn the bridge to them. I just stopped begging to cross it. As the sunset faded, I turned off the lights room by room, the glow dimming in the house that was truly mine. I locked the front door from the inside, and for the first time, I felt I belonged, not to the house, but to myself.